Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Let's go to KT.
Yeah, KT, former Deputy National Security Advisor under President Trump. KT, first of all, the blockade just went into effect literally about an hour ago there on the Strait of Hormuz. Your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. And if you think of what's happened in the last month when we've had the ceasefire and now that we've resumed attacks, first of all, President Trump understood they were going to break the ceasefire. So he held back about 15, 20% of the target list. Now he can go after that target list. The second thing that's happened in this intervening several-week period is that the United States now exports 30% more crude oil than it did before, so that the United States is now exporting more crude oil, more refined oil, more liquefied natural gas than any other country in the world, not by 1 or 2%, but by 20, 30%. We now own the global energy industry. And that's the real sort of takeaway from President Trump's Iran war. And in the meantime, Iran's nuclear capability has been destroyed, and if Pickaxe Mountain does have something, fine, we'll bomb that. And if they try to rebuild their nuclear sites, fine, we'll bomb those again. I think at this point he's so fractured. President Trump's actions have so scrambled the leadership of Iran between the IRGC, the guys who want no deal with nobody anytime, they're going to sabotage everything, and then the guys who really run the country, the civilian people who know that they've got to have 91 million people. They got a country to run. So he's weakened their regime to the point where it's now going to be up to the Iranian people. What do you guys want to do? And I think that the whole thing has just been brilliant because we're going to, look, I started working for Henry Kissinger when I was in my late teens, early 20s. That Strait of Hormuz has bedeviled everybody for 50 years because Iran or Saudi Arabia has always used it as a blackmail and leverage. President Trump has eliminated it as a blackmail and leverage point.
What did you see this, KT? It's interesting because originally President Trump talked about this 20% toll. And then he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what he calls a reimbursement fee with trade and investment deals. He says that the Gulf states are going to make into the United States. In other words, they'll contribute to America. But it's an interesting idea. What do you make of that, and how does that work? What, they're going to build a plant somewhere or do something?
Yeah, so in the very beginning of the first term, President Trump, we have this understanding that we would keep the strait open, we would protect the countries, the Gulf Arab countries, we would protect Israel. And he kept saying, we're getting nothing for it. Why don't they pay us? Well, these are really rich countries. Why should we pay to defend them? To protect them.
Now, what does it cost, KT, a month or a week to have one aircraft carrier and its accompanying destroyers?
Well, look, John, the aircraft carriers are going to be someplace. So if they're not in that region, they're in another part of the world. So they're already going to be afloat. But, it's $1 trillion defense budget. You figure out what's the percentage of that that puts forward basing in the region, that has the Armada there for an extended period of time. It's probably, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So what does that mean to the countries, the wealthy countries in the Gulf? President Trump has finally gotten what he really wanted in the first place, was he wanted the Gulf Arabs to pay for us to defend you. And that's exactly what he's gotten. I never thought that 20% toll thing, that didn't make any sense to me when he announced it yesterday on Truth Social. What does make a lot of sense is Trump getting those Gulf Arab countries to pay for the defense, to pay us to help defend themselves. Now, are they going to donate it to the U.S. Treasury? No, they're going to invest in America, and that's what's even more significant. It ties our economies closer together. It's prosperous for both of us, where it's a win-win, and we're now going to see, my guess is we're going to see an additional $500 billion of investment. As Rita said, are they going to build factories? You bet they are. They're going to build tech stuff, and we're going to invest in them as well. We'll build American tech in their countries. But again, this is the Abraham Accords on steroids. We are now going to, as President Trump said when he went to Saudi Arabia the second time, we're going to trade technology for terrorism, and we're going to trade consumption and consumerism and trade for terror and chaos. And so this is the Trump doctrine, right? We'll defend you, but we want to have an economic relationship with you, which far outlasts any temporary arrangement that you might have with another country. When they're physically and financially invested in you, you don't go to war.
Yeah, no, it's the art of the deal, I guess, if you will. Judge Weinberg.
KT, I want to ask you about this report that I just saw about 2 members of the Islamic State group had a problem in Iran if they were executed after they had an insurrection against Iran.
Right.
What is that about? I don't understand the politics of that. Can you explain that?
Iran, I think, from what I can tell, the leadership of Iran is in chaos. There's no one person speaking for Iran. And so the IRGC and the Basij, which is there's kind of volunteer guys. They're patrol guys who the thugs. They're basically the thugs who patrol the streets. They're looking for anybody they can to arrest and execute. Those are the guys who killed the 30,000 Iranian protesters that came to the streets. I think you're going to see an awful lot more challenges to the regime. They're going to come from civilians. They're going to come from splinter groups. You're just going to see more of it because it's chaotic. This is not a strong leadership. The fractured leadership is not a strong leadership. And at the end of the day, I think it'll end up being a slow rolling coup to people who will work for us.
If I was running the CIA or whatever, one of those intelligence divisions, I would have fed 30,000 guns to the rest of the groups.
You know, here's the thing. I always thought it was a pretty half-baked idea. So one of the theories was that you would arm certain groups in Iran that then would somehow attack the Iranian government. First of all, it never got off the ground, in part because it was the Kurds. They wanted to arm the Kurds.
Turkey shot down the Kurds idea.
Now, Turkey says, no, the Kurds, if you give those Kurds guns, they're going to come after us. Don't arm the Kurds. What I do think will happen, and interestingly, President Trump has never targeted 2 groups, 2 guys in uniforms. He's never targeted the regular Iranian army, the ones who preceded the Revolutionary Guard, and he's not targeted the regular police forces. He has targeted the IRGC, and he has targeted the Basij. These are all people who work for the, quote, mullahs, the Revolutionary Guard. So I think that what he's done is he's sort of laid the groundwork that if things get bad enough domestically, there are guys with guns in Iran who could then work with the civilian leadership to, slow rolling coup to get rid of the bad guys. This is like in Lebanon. He's doing the same thing in Lebanon. It's the same thing he did in Gaza, where he knows that there are groups you want to have somebody with guns, but you want to get those guys with the guns to get rid of the bad guys with the guns.
Let them take back their own country.
That's exactly what he's going to do. We're not going to put American boots on the ground.
No, never.
He's going to enable them to do it themselves.
Yeah, but like you said, the enabling is the key. Because one of the other things we were talking about now, the Kurds too. He was hoping. It sounded like that he was hoping the Kurds would at one point, but then he was disappointed because of what we just talked about exactly with Turkey.
Was it the Kurds' fault, or was it the fact that we backed off helping the Kurds because of Turkey?
Right, and then he said, and I was hoping some other groups. And then the other thing he also said, he hinted that like he got some guns to some group, maybe the Kurds, and somehow it didn't end that they kept them. So you got to make sure they actually get to the people who need them.
Yeah, KT, speaking of Turkey, people are not paying attention to how dangerous Erdogan is and the fact that he's an Islamist, that he believes in the domination of Islamist theology and politics. And he could be the successor to Iran and be a very powerful one. He's got a great military. Your thoughts?
I mean, I've been in a room negotiating with Erdogan. He's a really scary guy. I think he's an opportunist. And I think that he's found a way to work with President Trump, and as President Trump says, everything I've asked him for, he's done. We have this impression of Turkey right now in Erdogan, which is an accurate one, Judge, as you've just articulated. But what if you had a switch? What if somehow Erdogan and Turkey joined the Abraham Accords? I think we'd feel very differently about Turkey. And that would be the best result, to have Turkey, a powerful Turkey, but a Turkey on our side, a Turkey obviously in its own interest, but a Turkey working on the parallel agenda for ours.
Yeah, but his pronouncements are he's going to march into Jerusalem.
Yeah, he just said it recently, right?
Yeah,
but Judge, here's the thing. that guy changes, his allegiances faster than a high school girl changes her boyfriends.
Wait.
That's very serious stuff, KT.
How did you know about my high school years, KT? Wait a minute.
Oh, Rita, a lot of people. Anyway, no, but Erdogan used to be very close to Israel. Now Erdogan is not. Erdogan wanted to have Turkey be part of the European Union, and the European Union said, no, you're Muslim. We don't want you part of our club. And so then Erdogan turned to the Muslim world, and he said, well, I want to be a leader of the Muslim world. And now he's bumping up against other countries in the Muslim world, UAE and others, wealthy, powerful, militarily strong. I don't have a lot of problem if Erdogan is working with President Trump under President Trump's leadership, not as an independent operator, but under President Trump's leadership, and if President Trump can bring him along. Remember, Erdogan was one of the first signatories of the Gaza peace deal. That peace deal would not have happened without Erdogan's assistance. And now, how often have we talked about Gaza and Hamas? Not at all. We haven't heard a peep. Why? Because there's peace there and it's working.
Right. Keep even if they're sort of questionable allies close. Is a good message.
Rita, you don't make deals with your best friends. Negotiations are often with not very nice guys. Yep. You just want to win the negotiation.
Yeah, no, bottom line, you're right. You are right. KT, thank you. We love having you. Thank you, KT.
Pleasure.
Thank you, KT.
Thank you.